On this edition of the Pop Culture Cosmos, Josh Peterson and I talk about everything San Diego Comic-Con, from DC, Marvel, and everything else that kicked their heels up in San Diego this past weekend. We're going to talk about all the movies, all the info, comic book news galore, and everything else that made San Diego Comic-Con the true pop culture center of the entire world this past weekend. We're also going to talk the Destiny2 Beta, why Dunkirk surprised and did so well this weekend at the box office, and we also have a cut from the Super BS Gamescast from Humanica Media, and another hit song from Plasma Z. It's another fun time right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's not a fun time. It's another super duper time right here as we delve into the Pop Culture Cosmos. Almost forgot my opening. That's what happens when you don't write things down. Anyways. And we're back with another edition of the Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. I'm here back once again with my good friend, the man, the myth, the legend from Humanica Media, because I like saying who instead of Hugh when I'm saying Humanica Media, because it's kind of cool. It's Josh Peterson. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. Just keeping busy, doing some podcasts, watching Comic-Con stuff, you know.
And there's a ton of news to go around when it comes to Comic-Con, isn't it? It is truly the pop culture center of the universe.
Right, a lot of unexpected things coming out of Comic-Con this year, and I would have to say I think Marvel kind of won Comic-Con.
Which is truly surprising because I know we couldn't really get together on Friday for the Friday show at length to talk some serious issues, but I wanted to talk D23 versus Marvel, D23 versus Comic-Con. And I was going to say how D23 was maybe taking a little bit out of the bite out of Comic-Con itself, especially since Star Wars wasn't really there in mass per se. But I tell you what, the news was flowing. And if you missed any of the news at all, check out our Facebook or Twitter feed, Pop Culture Cosmos. I'm telling you right now, I must have posted at least 3, 4, or 5 dozen stories on actual Comic-Con news that came out during the period of Thursday, Friday, Saturday that was there. It was so amazing. It was almost like what happens around time of the press conferences at E3 when on the Game Source Facebook and Twitter feed, where I'm just posting stories, news, items that everybody should be familiar with or would want to know about. And in this case, it all came from Comic-Con, and all the pop culture items is truly just one right after other and another and another. But it's truly awesome for pop culture fans indeed. And Josh, I'll tell you what, have you been able to get a chance to catch up yet with everything going on at Comic-Con this past weekend?
Yeah, I've been watching stuff as it's come out and been in the news and whatnot. I haven't been paying attention to a lot of that legitimate comic book news, but as far as all the movie trailers go, I've been watching them as they popped up.
Well, I'm going to get your thoughts on some of the comic book news as we go along. And I first want to start off with the comic book giant themselves, DC. Because I know you were talking about how, things were lined up as far as Marvel winning the weekend, but DC didn't do a bad job themselves. Obviously, the first and foremost thing that we want to talk about is Justice League, the movie trailer that came out this past weekend. They released another one, and I'll tell you what, coming off the heels of a pretty good and pretty solid initial trailer, This seems to be, continuing that basis, obviously focusing on the good stuff that's going on in DC with Wonder Woman. And so they paid a lot of attention to her and her character, which is obviously right now not a bad thing at all to do. And also the introduction of Steppenwolf as the character and the antagonist in the movie that will face off against the Justice League. So what are your thoughts initially on what you saw with the trailer and Steppenwolf as a character that will be facing off against the Justice League?
My thoughts, it looks good. I'm concerned. I don't think I'm 100% concerned, but there's a little bit of concern just because they have a history of, like with Batman vs Superman, when they showed that it's like a 4 or 5 minute trailer. That one Comic-Con, they pretty much showed the entire movie, or all the action scenes at least. So that's that's concerns me a little bit that maybe they did that for Justice League, but at the same time they did a good job of showing that dynamic between characters. And I was telling someone this weekend that a lot of the characters in the DC universe, they pretty much have the same exact power. So I like the camera work because they have to be clever with like their camera angles and how they film things to kind of differentiate between like Wonder Woman and Superman and Aquaman, because they can all, they're all super strong. So you have to kind of give them character, and that's up to the director and the cameraman to do that. And I think they did a pretty good job. And I also like how, this is one thing I think that Marvel can probably take notes on, assuming that Justice League is good, is how to make a movie keep a movie lighthearted, but still be able to have like those darker moments that occur, which is something I'm hoping that Marvel might approach with Spider-Man soon. But who's to say, man? But yeah, it looks good. I'm excited. I'm more curious to see how they're gonna make Aquaman and the Flash kind of bring them into the fold.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask about, because they also now announced a continuous slate of films, but there's still several gaps. They still have all these movies that they want to come out with, actually by the end of the decade here, which is rapidly approaching. From what I've got a good read on, they were talking about movies like Batgirl, Shazam, Aquaman, Flash, which I guess is called Flashpoint, Cyborg, Gotham City Sirens, Suicide Squad 2, Man of Steel 2 possibly, and because from all instances it looks like Superman's coming back in the Justice League. I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point.
Did you notice though, they showed Alfred, they're kind of alluding to that being Superman, but they also showed Supergirl's cape in the trailer.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. That's the speculation online that could be happening. So definitely some good things indeed. And then, of course, the biggest thing in regards to that slate of films was initially not counting in the Batman, which is, I guess, was the working title. And that led to a heavy speculation on Thursday and Friday that Ben Affleck would not be returning to the role. But on Saturday, during the DC panel, he said he loves Batman. He's excited to work with Matt Reeves on a future Batman movie. They're calling it, I guess, for all intents and purposes, the Batman from this point forward, and that it will be coming out again before 2020 at some point in time. So it looks like, as of right now, it's a go. And Ben Affleck said that he was happy to be Batman and that he wants to be Batman for as long as Warner Brother wants him to be in the role. So it looks like going forward that they're going to have Batman. And I think for continuity's sake, especially if they want to do another Justice League 2, which was also, I believe, talked about in that upcoming slate of films, I would think, for all intents and purposes, that they would have to keep him within the role. What are your thoughts on Ben Affleck and the whole Batman scenario going on this weekend?
First, you were talking about films. You know what really bummed me out about their slate of films that they announced?
What was that?
Is that I want to know more about Justice League Dark. I was hoping they'd talk some more about that, but that's kind of been put on the so far down on the back burner that I think it's just kind of sizzled away.
It looks like it has. You know what I think may have done it for him is the performance of the Mummy, and they're obviously the monster universe that we had talked about Universal trying to create. Maybe that might have set things off as far as something they would want to do maybe down the road as a movie, or maybe even do something in a different fashion, present it in a different fashion, so to speak. So maybe that might have been the case. Just speculation on my part, of course.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's possible. There are like characters like Constantine though, and like Swamp Thing. They do have a very heavy following. So it's, if that's even after like the popularity of the animated Justice League Dark movie, you'd think that they'd want to move in on that pretty quick.
But I would tell you, Constantine, the movie did okay. The TV series did not do okay. Swamp Thing was as a nice cult hit back in the 80s. So I'm not it's confident on that fan base following as you are, as far that will follow it straight to the movies, and then maybe bringing the Justice League Dark universe to greater heights at the box office. But I would like to see it personally, but I'm not convinced. And you haven't convinced me that there's a strong enough following to support it at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean the show did have a cult following. I just think that it needs to be done right. Like they need to do the character justice, which I don't think has been done very well. And as far as like Keanu Reeves's version of it, I don't think that was an accurate portrayal of the character. But I digress. Back to Batman. Yeah, it was weird because when they announced that, I originally thought that I was like, everyone's talking about how they're going to transition Ben Affleck out, and I was like, oh frick yeah, they're going to do Batman Beyond. They're going to kick Ben Affleck out and bring in Terry McGinnis. It's not going to be Bruce Wayne anymore. That would be legit. But yeah, that was the then I heard about Flashpoint, and then I kind of was able to put two and two together. But I would like to see that. Like that sounds interesting to me, to have Jeffrey Dean Morgan, because he played Thomas Wayne in
That's correct.
yeah. And so in the I don't know if you've read the Flashpoint comics, but in the comics the Flash goes back and he saves his mom, and in doing so he creates this ripple effect throughout the timeline, and instead of Bruce becoming Batman, and Bruce ends up getting murdered that night that Thomas and Martha were supposed to get murdered. So Thomas becomes Batman and Martha becomes the Joker. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And like the Thomas Wayne is like this ultimate super violent Batman. So well it's going to be a super dark movie. Like it,
and he can actually be very super violent, as fans of The Walking Dead can attest to.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's, yeah, if they're going to do Flashpoint, like hopefully it's going to be the movie that fans want to see, instead of not. Hopefully they don't try to what I'm saying. Hopefully they don't try to tiptoe around like all the darkness and the violence that kind of circulates through that comic book.
Well, that's definitely something to look forward to. I actually kind of like the angle that they're approaching with Flash in the Justice League film, that he really has never been in combat, so he's very afraid that he would not afraid of the battle itself, but it seems like he's afraid of letting everyone down and letting all of his fellow superheroes down. I get that sense from the trailer. Is that what you get, or is there something different?
Yeah, well, I get this feeling like he's not. It's not like Spider-Man, how Peter Parker in the movie he really wants to be a superhero. I think like with the Flash, he's not trying to prove anything to anyone, but he just doesn't know as much as he just doesn't know what he's doing.
Definitely, indeed.
Kind of like the black sheep of the group.
Yes. I hear you absolutely. And just it looks like though that at least the DC set is somewhat on course. I know they also talked about their comic books with Superman Year One. That can become a series with Frank Miller returning to write that. You're familiar with his work, being our comic book man to know. Does this excite you in any way as far as getting back into the Superman comic books?
Yeah, it's always exciting when Frank Miller does a new series. The question is like how how tired are the readers of these stories? Like, I think that it's weird because I think that Frank Miller should have his own universe. I think that uh, the Frank Miller universe should be able to stay together. Like all that stuff, everything he's done needs to not be canon to the normal DC timeline, because it's a lot of these stories just get beat to death, and then even when Frank Miller comes and does something good with it, it kind of gets overlooked. So I'm excited about it, and I hope that people read it. It's enough to make me want to go back and read it, but uh, right now I'm just not in any hurry to pick up comic books because I'm getting kind of burnt out on these stories just being rehashed over and over again.
I understand completely, indeed. So, but it's a little change of pace, indeed, for the DC comic book scene. Just basically, I think they presented themselves they presented themselves well at Comic-Con. Definitely was a surprise to me because on the heels of Wonder Woman doing so well, I was expecting kind of a downturn as far as we're in a negative fashion, because DC has just never been, and Warner Brothers have never been able to stay on the right track when it comes to their film set. But it looks like that they have somewhat of a plan in place. And if they're not going to get you with quality, they're certainly going to hit you up with quantity as far as the number of films that they have, at least on the slate and in the planning stages so far. So they've got a ton of films that they plan on trying to come out with by 2020. So if you haven't had your fill of comic book movies, well, you're certainly going to get your fill and then some over the next few years. Now, we can't talk about comic book films without talking about Marvel, and we're going to do so. But first, we got a great show, like I said, lined up for you today. We've got the great folks from the TV Ratings Guide, Jessica Boggs, and also Bridger Cunningham stopping by on the show to talk some of the summer programming and some thoughts on the TV scene as well. We also got a sample from the Super BS Games cast, and also Josh and I will quickly cover our thoughts on the Destiny 2 beta, and then also as well why Dunkirk performed so well at the box office this weekend. It's going to be another great episode indeed, but first we're going to play our good friend Elijah Harrison, aka DJ Plasma Z, and this is Junkyard Nomads, and this is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. I'm here along with my good friend, the man, the myth, the legend behind Humanica Media. It's Josh Peterson. If you are by chance not able to check us out on the Podcast Radio Network, where we've been #1 with this show 5 months in a row, and it's all because of you, and we truly appreciate you listening, then you can always catch us on our Pop Culture Cosmos download channels, which are all over the internet. They're on your favorite downloading stations, including iTunes, TuneIn, the ACE Podcast Network, Overcast.fm, Player.fm. It's on Google Play. It's on Stitcher. It's on Podcast.com, Mixcloud, the ESO Network, the Tangibound Network, and the Gunny Geek Network as well. And also popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, our home site. And if you download or stream on one of those outlets, our show or the PCC Multiverse, we try very hard to add on some free extra content, including extra bonus podcasts from time to time, just for listening. Well, Josh, you said that Marvel won the day when it came out to what took place at Comic-Con, because while DC did very well in the afternoon on Saturday, Marvel really stunned the crowd with a lot of great news going forward as well for all things Marvel. And first off, I want to get your thoughts on what you think about the upcoming movie Thor Ragnarok, because I really just it not only showed that what they had been talking about with the buddy film that they had been, alluding to with the Hulk and Thor, but also as well just talked about a little bit more about who is teaming up against the bad guys this time around.
Yeah, if, I briefly saw the trailer today. I meant to go back and watch it again, but it has, I don't know, it's Thor, Valkyrie, Hulk, and Loki. And
matching up, yes, they are matching up against. That's right.
I like that whole line when he said, "I'm putting a team together," because it kind of reminded me of the Justice League. Like I felt like they were kind of taking a jab at the Justice League.
Ah, okay. It sounded to me more like a Nick Fury line, but I understand what you're saying. Yep, definitely a jab at them as well. I heard there's also a jab when it comes to what's his name? Oh, excuse me, Carl Urban and his character, who took a nice little joke that inferred his time as in Star Trek as well. So definitely waiting to hear that again. Hear that in the theaters as opposed to reading in articles and whatnot. But your thoughts on the actual trailer itself? Do you think it's something that's really good? It had a really nice 70s vibe to it. From what I was seeing, and it really had just like a good old school feel to it, almost like a Flash Gordon movie type feel to it.
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually heard that comparison several times today, and that I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. I think that this movie is going to be a genuinely fun Thor movie. Like it's we talked about this before, how the last two Thors kind of failed to gain traction with people. I think that this Thor is going to be
I'm one of those people it hasn't gained traction with.
Yeah. The second one's better than the first one, though. Let's just call it that. But
I don't know if I would call it that, but I'll have to check my rankings, which you can also see on popculturecosmos.wordpress.com.
Yeah, www.geraldiswrong.com. But yeah, so I think it's going to be a genuinely fun movie. It's got I like that whole, because if you go back and look at Avengers and you ask people like who their favorite characters in the movie were, a lot of people like the dynamic between Hulk and Thor. Just the
I know I'm one of them, and I really like what I see out of Thor Ragnarok.
And I think that they were really stupid to wait this long to explore that dynamic, because it makes sense that they're doing it, though, just because Universal is still holding on to the rights to a solo Hulk film, which makes things difficult for Marvel. But yeah, it's because Thor Ragnarok is one of the I think it was like the last time they did this storyline in the comics was in Avengers Disassembled, and that was like 15, 16 years ago, I think. So I've always wanted to know what that would look like on screen. I think that this is going to be a really cool movie, and I'm excited to see, like, I like how this iteration of Thor is kind of lining up with the unworthy Thor, like the new one that they got right now, how he loses his hammer. He's just kind of floating around doing his thing, and he's
as he said, he was on a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, he's kind of like, he's not
for a day, mind you.
Yeah. So he's not quite like the hero he used to be, but he's still he's still doing his thing. So that's what we want to see. But yeah, I like the whole, like, the buddy cop dynamic with Loki and the Hulk, and I'm curious to see how Doctor Strange is going to play and where that's going to lead. And how Thor ends up just floating through space in the end, because I don't know if you saw the leaked Infinity War footage.
Just a little bit out of a side view where I had to turn my head in like a 90-degree angle like this, because someone, note to people that are trying to pirate this stuff out there, could you please try and straighten out your video device so that people do not have to go ahead and see it at a diagonal low bottom of the left-hand screen, please.
Right. Yeah. So I think they're trying to hide it because you can kind of see the lady's head that's kind of sitting in front of them.
Yeah.
Like what we were trying to do at E3 when they were showing that God of War panel. We were kind of trying to sneak the camera up there. But yeah, it's
exactly.
Yeah. No, it looks like a fun movie. I'm excited to watch it. I'm a huge Thor fan, but like this looks like it's a mixture of like what you'd expect from Thor and like the lighthearted moments of an Avengers film mixed with, I think there's a lot of pages taken from the playbook of James Gunn here is what it's kind of looking like. So
I agree with that as well. But I also heard that Hulk has been in Hulk mode for 2 years, actually since the events of Age of Ultron. Is
Well,
that correct?
yeah, you see in the trailer they have that part where they're actually like talking. The Hulk is actually becoming intelligent, and I don't know what that's about. Like I've never seen that before. I know in Planet Hulk he kind of has that, and then it kind of carries on into uh, Scar, his the son of Hulk. So yeah, I think that there's a there's a character there's that has not been explored yet. So that's also exciting to me because we get to see the Hulk, but we've always just seen the Hulk smash. We haven't actually seen a side of the Hulk that can think for himself.
Definitely to something to look forward to, indeed. And just it looks like it's a lot of fun, and that's something I haven't been able to say ever about a Thor movie that I'm definitely looking forward to seeing for the first time in a long time, I guess. I have seen the other films in the theater, but as I've told you, I've not been impressed with them, but I'm definitely going to be looking forward to changing my mind when it comes out in November. Now, there's also some great stuff that they announced, indeed, including the new Marvel Legacy Collection with a lot of different stuff that they're going back to as far as the, like you said, I know it's maybe a lot of rehashing for some, but maybe for some newer comic book fans, it's going to be a great way to get into a lot of series. One series that they didn't announce up front in the list was Captain America. And obviously the feedback that they've been getting from Secret Empire as far as him going rogue and him becoming a leader of Hydra, has not gone over well. Sales wise, it might have, but it's not gone over well with certain segment of the audience, myself included. But it looks like with new writers coming in after the Secret Empire phases itself out, that he will be going back to a new Captain America series, and that he will be going back to the Cap that we all know and remember. So that's a good sign for there, indeed, for people hoping out for that. Black Panther, I didn't really hear too much on. I think more was elaborated with Black Panther.
Quick, though, about Captain America. I know this series, they're talking about how they want to recapture audiences or readers to enjoy Captain America. So I guess the comic book revolves around him touring the country doing good deeds for people. But let me ask you this: do you think that they have tarnished Captain America so much that do you think it's going to be an easy road for people to?
I don't think it will be. I personally, at least not in the near future, maybe in the long term, but they have to associate it more with Chris Evans as Captain America. I think if they are going to be able to do it, I think they're going to have to basically associate it with Chris Evans' character in the films, because Chris Evans' character is on the straight and narrow. And when he does things because he feels he's right. And obviously he's indicated publicly that he's not like the turn that's gone place in the comic book Captain America world. And I think if they are going to be able to successfully transfer that back to people's face in Captain America, A, it's going to take a while, and B, I think they would have to do it associating more with the Chris Evans version. But that's just my feel.
Though, that they took a piece of the Secret Wars comic, Captain America, and put it into Infinity Wars when he shows up with the beard.
Yes, that part, yes, but that's the Nomad version, I should say, of Captain America. I mean, that version of him is a good version of Captain America, correct, in the Secret Empire.
Right. So it's just there. I think because Marvel kept saying everyone kept saying Marvel has a plan. They know what they're doing, but I don't think that the payoff was worth the sacrifice that Marvel made to stir some controversy.
No, I don't think it was worth it, indeed, at least to do it to Captain America. I think for shock value, I think it was, a nice short-term hit for them, but obviously in the long term, it hasn't paid off well at all. And so obviously them announcing that he's going to revert back to the Captain America we all know and admire, maybe, trying to put out the fire after it's already burned down the house. But at this point, that's what they got to do, I think, in order to try and reinstate faith in comic book fans in Captain America. But that's just, that's our opinion, but it looks like it's probably opinion of many others as well. Like I said, Black Panther, they didn't elaborate too much on in Comic-Con. They had already explained a lot in D23, so I think that was a calculated move. But one thing they did talk about was Ant-Man and the Wasp, and the announcement that Michelle Pfeiffer is going to play the character Janet Van Dyne, who was already cast in the previous Ant-Man briefly, but it looks like they're going to expound on that even further going forward with Michelle Pfeiffer, because I'm assuming because she's such an outstanding actress and a name individual, and a name that people can recognize as far as it's concerned. Correct?
Yeah, correct. So you're probably more knowledgeable on that announcement than I am, because I didn't actually. This is news to me when you told me about it. But yeah, I imagine they're trying to get some more star power into that film. Paul Rudd is funny, but I don't think he's enough to bring in more viewers. So I think that's probably a smart move to try to bring in some more talent. I like the first Ant-Man, but like it wasn't exactly, didn't really have a lot of star power. Paul Rudd doesn't have the biggest following, if you know what I mean.
No, I understand that. And obviously of the Marvel films, of the more recent Marvel films, it is the least performing worldwide. I believe of the, I'm not talking about the Captain America or the first Thor, whatnot, back in, when Marvel was just starting to kick it into gear. I think it is of the more recent turns, aka 2013, 2014, moving on. It is, I believe, the lowest grossing, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it's close to it. So definitely, I don't think it has that support behind it. But it seems like from Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp has a lot of support, because you and I both have championed other avenues instead of Ant-Man and the Wasp, like a Black Widow film and whatnot, or a Hawkeye film. Something that is a little bit different, that was still familiar with fans, would be have been a better way to go, in our opinion, than Ant-Man and the Wasp. But it is, Paul Rudd is a great actor indeed, and very funny, but he does not seem to have that commercial wide appeal to bring Ant-Man and the Wasp higher, like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 did, as opposed to Guardians of the Galaxy. Correct?
Yeah, but that didn't mean the movies were good. Weren't good. I just feel like they weren't really marketed well enough, and plus too, like, I don't know if it was all Paul Rudd's fault for not being super popular with mainstream fans, but I think it was more the fact that it was Ant-Man, and that's not really a hero that people care too much about. I know James Gunn totally flipped those tables with Guardians of the Galaxy, but at the same time, like, look at the characters, though. Look at the characters. Look at the cast of that movie. And then look at this one. You have Paul Rudd playing a man who shrinks. The movie was good, but it just is not the kind of thing that's going to bring in new fans, at least not to the theaters. They might wait till it hits, DVD, digital, Blu-ray, whatever. But it's not going to be a movie that's going to bring in high box office numbers.
Definitely. I couldn't agree with you more on that. So maybe just something that Marvel really likes to go ahead and advance storylines within. Maybe that's why they like Ant-Man so much, and Ant-Man and the Wasp maybe does that for them indeed. Last thing on Marvel, though, you touched on it briefly as we were looking off to the side like this. That's Infinity War. Infinity War was shown again. The trailer that has not been shown publicly was shown again to audiences at Comic-Con. And a lot of good vibes from it. People are really excited indeed over it. But one thing that was on display at D23, and also I believe as well Comic-Con, was the mentioning of Thanos's troops known as the Black Order. And I wanted to ask you, since you are our comic book man in the know, if you could enlighten us more about what will be taking place with Thanos's group known as the Black Order.
Do you ever notice how Marvel has this obsession with kind of like their horsemen of the apocalypse?
I agree with the X-Men after seeing that last year and whatnot with Apocalypse and all that.
It's a theme that they play heavily on, and I don't quite understand what the obsession is, but so the Black Order are basically
there are 5 in the comic books, but only 4 being used. Correct?
Correct. So I forget what the statues are. I know there's Black Dwarf, Corvus Glaive, Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight, and Supergiant. who are they're killed by very, like in the comic books they always meet their match at various obscure Marvel, the hands of various obscure Marvel characters while trying to find the Infinity Stones, which are being held by the Illuminati of Iron Man, Doctor Strange, whatnot. But yeah, these these characters. Okay, this is how I think they're going to drag the movie into two parts. Is the first part's going to do a lot of like confrontation with the Black Order, and then maybe it'll finally end with the beginnings of a fight, and then it'll be in Infinity War Part 2, where we'll finally actually get to see like the aftermath or even the fight itself. But
so where does the Thanos, because obviously you and I read and actually tried to see it like going like this, where the confrontation with Thanos that you see him briefly with Star-Lord and then also throwing the celestial body and whatnot.
It's kind of I think that's going to be like a warm-up fight. There's going to be some sort of retreat going on, because they wouldn't just show us the big epic showdown in the trailer. I hope they release that, by the way. But yeah, I think that's going to be just some kind of like little kind of whet your taste buds a little bit, and then I think that the main battles are going to be with the Black Order. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone out of their way to build them their own statues at Comic-Con. I think they play a lot bigger part than we're thinking they do.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. It just sounds like some definitely great analysis by you on that. So definitely can agree with you more on that as well. If you have thoughts on Marvel and DC and how they performed at Comic-Con, and you want to share some thoughts and some theories of what's going to be going on in both those universes, and also, do you approve of the list that DC's coming out with on all the films? Same thing with Marvel and all the films that we had talked about as well. Do you like what you're seeing out of both of those film universes? And then also the comic book series. Do you like that they're going back to the basics with Captain America and also with Superman as well? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanican Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. And we're back with Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate being back, listening to us. And one last thing before we get out of our synopsis of what's going on and what went on at Comic-Con is all the great stuff that was not Marvel and DC related, which I guess is probably the biggest reason why it is still head and shoulders above what D23 can be, because D23 does announce a lot of non-Marvel stuff, relating to their films, the Pixar's stuff that's going on, and also Disney princesses, and also stuff with their Disney theme parks and all that. But when you have all these other great pop culture iconic shows, movies that want to show off their trailers and whatnot. So I wanted to ask first, before I get into everything else that went on that I want to be able to talk about, what was the non-Marvel DC thing that stuck out to you most from this week's Comic-Con?
I got two, actually. Stranger Things Season 2 and Rocko's Modern Life.
Notice those are actually good points indeed, because Rocko's Modern Life is actually coming back in a movie form. Is that correct?
I think Hey Arnold is coming back in a movie form. I don't know about Rocko's Modern Life. I thought is it a movie or is it a TV show? I don't know. I just saw the trailer because I had no idea this was happening, and then I saw
it too. I wasn't sure to make out if it was going to be it, but it is it is coming back to audiences once again.
Yeah, and if you notice in the trailer, they're very keen about making sure that humor that appealed to adults back then is still going to be intact. Like, you'll be able to have your kid humor and you'll have your adult humor. So I'm excited about it. I'm very excited.
I could tell. And then Stranger Things Season 2, obviously it had a lot of great references. Yes, I remember playing Dragon Slayer myself, and I couldn't get the combos right all the time either. Just want to let everybody out there know. But it does look like it's going to be a continuation of the great series that Stranger Things is for Netflix. And I know everybody's excited for it because it's coming out this Halloween. So those are excellent choices as well. First off, what were your thoughts on Kingsman 2 coming out to theaters, I believe, in September? To audiences. I really liked the trailer. Some people said it showed too much, but I got a little bit more insight on the Statesman and exactly whether or not Colin Firth is going to be on the side of good or the side of evil this time around.
No, I don't think that it made things confusing. Sorry, hold on one second. I don't think that it made things confusing as much as it kind of cleared things up. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Right on cue.
Sorry, but yeah, I don't think that it made things confusing as much as it kind of cleared up some stuff that we were wondering, like who are the Statesmen? What do they do? It turns out they're the American version of the Kingsmen, and but yeah, so they're the American version of the Kingsmen, and yeah, that was just something that I was curious about in the first one too. And as far as like Harry good, they didn't really reveal anything about the villain, and I would hope that.
Well, it was Julianne Moore seemed to be explaining, and she seemed to be looking at more to be like the villain in this case. First, I thought it was hinting in the first trailer that Colin Firth's character was going to be the villain. Because you know, it just appeared itself to be that way. But in the second trailer, he seems to be assisting the Kingsmen in trying to battle the forces of evil.
Yeah, correct. And I'm curious, like how they're gonna explain how he came back to life, because he didn't just get shot in the eye; like he got his whole face blown off. So I hope they go into some detail about how that.
I would hope so too. But then again, this is the same movie set that had that really fantastic ending as far as the people's heads popping off into fireworks type of deal. So with the Kingsman, anything is possible indeed.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, like, I would hope to see some more character development between Eggsy and the I forgot what the girl's name was. You could tell that there was something like kind of hinted at in the last movie. And I'm not like a huge sucker for romance movies, but at the same time, I feel like you can't have him just.
It was like something like this barely teased when they were training, and they did kind of left it alone after a little while. After when she went off into space and whatnot, it just spoilers. Sorry, but it's on FX now. You got to deal with it. So it just seemed like they kind of branched that off so that he could go save the world type of deal, while she was taking care of, I guess, the satellite, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I definitely would like to see them evolve that part of the relationship as well, since they are, looks like from all appearances, some of the last Kingsmen around, correct?
Yeah, right. Not because I'm so tired of hearing people say, "Hey, this movie is the next James Bond." Like that is the most overused phrase, and I don't want the Kingsmen to be like the next James Bond.
It is not. I think it's trying to poke fun at James Bond the entire way.
Yeah. I'm more alluding to like Atomic Blonde and all that, but like I don't want to see Eggsy just like go after, just have these random sexual encounters in the end of each of these movies. I'd rather see him like be developed more as a character.
I think so as well. That would be great to see him develop and continue that, because to me it was a fun movie. It was basically something I saw on DVD, and I was completely caught by surprise at how much I liked it. And I'm still, even after the second trailer, it came out on Thursday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or Friday. Those days seem to be flying on by with all the news from Comic-Con. It was definitely great to see it. Indeed, I liked the development and where it was going. I know, like I said, some of it thought maybe it's a little too much to show, but for me, it was good enough indeed. And then also there was stuff from Blade Runner 2049. I got to see and understand better the timeline, exactly what has happened as far as replicants being outcast and then being brought back into society, and then now on the verge of possibly even taking over the society of the human race as well, leading into Blade Runner 2040, 9. So definitely looking forward to that. And I know you and I both on and off the air have shared our interest in this movie. And, people know exactly by now where it stands with me on my list of all time great films. And I would like to know exactly where it's going indeed, as far as where Denis Villeneuve wants to take it that step further. So I was hoping that Ridley Scott would have directed it, but then again, he was busy doing Alien Covenant, and that may have not been the wisest.
Too soon. Too soon.
That may have not been the wisest decision. And I don't think Alien Covenant 2, I think, was talked about and rumored over the weekend being, not on the way out, as far as something that's being no longer being considered down the road.
I don't want them to reboot the Alien franchise. I don't care anymore. Like I want to see like the sequel to Prometheus that we deserved to see, but I don't like, if they were to reboot Alien, I just wouldn't watch it anymore.
Yeah, I think I think they're going to leave the Alien franchise alone, because I think there is definite franchise fatigue there that can't be supported anymore, at least at this point in time, unless they do something dramatic to the series, which unfortunately might be a reboot, which you're not asking for, but unfortunately at some point down the road you may get, because they have no other creative alternatives. But there were some other great things going on at Comic-Con. The Orville, which supposed to be a Star Trek parody entirely. Does this excite you? Did you get a chance to see Seth MacFarlane's latest attempt at trying to garner a television audience?
I didn't watch the trailer. Honestly, like, I'm not very interested in it. It's cool that there's an audience for it, I'm sure, and there's people who would want to see it. Maybe Star Trek fans would like it, but I don't like parodies. I don't like things that I can't take seriously.
Well, I did like Galaxy Quest, although this does not appear to be shaping up as funny as Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest still told an excellent story, and also one of the first versions of really portraying not Comic-Con per se, but conventions for pop culture fanatics like us. It was one of the first that I could see portraying that whole atmosphere, from what I remember. So
right. And Galaxy Quest had characters who knew that they were flawed, but like this whole thing with Seth MacFarlane's new show, like, there is no real world. It's just the whole thing is supposed to be a joke, and I don't think I could probably swing my time to get into that.
And it doesn't look like you're going to probably swing much time into Star Trek Discovery, but I'm actually very interested in it. And a new trailer came out for that, and I actually really I'm actually really kind of getting into it more. A new way of looking at the Klingon race is being done in this version, in this part of the timeline of the series, which takes place before the events of the Star Trek reboot. So definitely looking forward to Star Trek Discovery. I'm at least going to catch it on CBS when it hits there, and my decision on whether or not I'm going to go forward with CBS All Access depends on how well and my thoughts on that show as well. So definitely looking forward to that indeed. Also, some Westworld 2 teaser, I guess, would probably be. It's not a trailer indeed. It's more like a teaser, because I know they just started production. So some definitely great images that we saw there, especially of the men in black, all covered in blood. So you don't know what's going on there. So it's, which again, like I said, previously was a series which was either really good or really bad at times, depending on your thoughts going through it as you watch the entire series. So definitely looking to give it another chance indeed this time around. But last, I want to talk to you as pop culture, as host of the Pop Culture Cosmos, along with me, and pop culture interests that we have. Is there any bigger pop culture, trailer that you've seen than Ready Player One, coming up, a movie next year by Steven Spielberg?
No, it's funny, because with that, I think we're getting kind of these pseudo sequels that we always wanted to see, like what would happen if this universe were extended a little bit. And I think we're gonna get to see it. So like as far as like Tron and the Iron Giant and
Exactly. Freddy Krueger being shot right in the middle of it. It basically looked like a VR experience done by a whole bunch of different people at the same time, but it was just truly wild as far as all the different pop culture references. From Back to the Future had the DeLorean. It was just wild and crazy from what we saw, correct?
I think from what I understand of the movie though, isn't the key to saving the world is hidden in these old pop culture references, right? Is that
I believe that is correct from the book. Well, it's obviously from the hit book Ready Player One that came out just a short time ago. So definitely looking forward to catching up with my interest on that. But I believe that is correct on that.
okay? Yeah, see, I had to see what the story was about. I never read the book. Like that surprises me because I usually like those kind of books. So I might pick up the book before. But yeah, it looks really good. It looks like it's very well done. It's not one of those like cheesy sci-fi movies that got a low budget and a terrible director. So to me, this would be like if Spielberg directed like the Tron Legacy movie that never got that sequel. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, he does need a boost himself because the BFG underperformed at the box office. So
Hey,
Ready Player.
Real though, BFG was actually a pretty good movie.
I'm going to take your word. I'm going to take your word for it. I'm just telling you the bottom line. So.
BFG, no. Okay, never mind. I never saw BFG. I was thinking about A Monster Calls. I take that comment back.
Okay, so all right. Well, the BFG came out. Yeah, that came out last year. So coming off the heels of that, he does need a good movie to obviously. Well, he can make any movie he wants because he's Steven Spielberg, so he's got that tenure. But definitely looking forward to Ready Player One because it definitely would look like a film worth watching for all the pop culture references. And I think, are we going to be actually watching the film? We're going to go like, oh, that's that. Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that. Going to be looking at all the different parts of the screen instead, looking for all those pop culture icons from the past, present, and going forward. So definitely some great references there indeed. Ready Player One. So that was some of the great news that we wanted to cover here at the Pop Culture Cosmos show. If you have your thoughts on Comic-Con as a whole and what you liked and what you didn't like, please share your thoughts with us. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook and Twitter as well, along with Humanican Media and of course Game Source as well. And we're back with Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. I'm here along with my good friend, Mr. Josh Peterson. Just want to make sure everybody knows that Attack of the Humanicans is every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on a podcast radio network. And then also as well on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. It's the PCC Multiverse as well. And I know the PCC Multiverse drops on the Pop Culture Cosmos show, the Pop Culture Cosmos channel on all those streaming and downloading channels that I mentioned earlier. Where does all the Humanican Media stuff drop, including Attack of the Humanicans, the Super BS Gamescast, What About This, and more?
It's all over the place, honestly. Like you can catch most of it on iTunes, but as far as like Topicocalypse goes, like that's confined to podcast.com and YouTube. What About This you can catch on Podbean, and which that also distributes to all your major podcast outlets. And then I don't know, Attack of the Humanicans is not even available to download yet. So I'm currently working on it. I just I had a thing with my family, so maybe in the next couple weeks, hopefully I'll have all that stuff in one place for people.
But Attack of the Humanicans is definitely on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So that's exclusive right now to the Podcast Radio Network. And that's definitely something to look forward to indeed. Well, Josh, the Destiny2 Beta was out this weekend. And it, obviously thrilled a lot of Destiny fans indeed, but it did it gain some new interest with players out there, with gamers out there? I want to hear your thoughts, but I can tell you from my standpoint, to me, it didn't grab me again like the first original Destiny did. I think it was a better telling, it was more polished. Obviously, from a narration and a story standpoint, from what you could play, it seemed a little bit better on that sense. The action seemed a little bit more fluid, but for some reason, it still just doesn't grab a hold of me. I still don't have that connection with the players, with the your characters that you play, and then also the characters you interact with within the volume and the context of the game. What are your thoughts on the Destiny 2 beta? Was there any interest on your part, or was it something that you see going forward that will make you want to buy Destiny 2?
I didn't play the beta. I never played the first one. At this point, like there's so many games coming out that I want to play. Like that, there would have to be something really crazy good in that game to pull me into it. Maybe, if my friends were playing, maybe I'd pick it up. But like, I just right now I don't have any interest in it. What we saw at E3 looked cool. I liked watching it. I like seeing people play in the dynamic there. But right now, I don't have a lot of interest in it.
And that's not that's not different from what a lot of other people are saying. As far as what I'm seeing and reading in the vibe, is that it is more of Destiny, which to Destiny fans that is a good thing, because finally, after a couple years or whatnot of polishing, updates, story enhancements, story changes, character changes, and level design fixes, and multiplayer and single player challenges and story elements that have been updated, it seems like it is now a better polished game by far than what it was when it first originally released. I'm talking about the original Destiny, of course, and Destiny 2 looks like a good step for many that like it. But for those who could never really get into it, like you and I did play several hours of the original Destiny and just could never really grab onto me like that. It just, again, it was something that I just couldn't really get into 100% and devoted, because I just didn't find a hook for it. I still haven't found it yet. I'm hoping maybe if I watch more footage or when a game comes out, I can. So I'm hopeful of that. I haven't written off completely, but yes, it is going to be definitely something that I'm going to have to take a longer look at in order to get that hook indeed. What are your thoughts on Destiny 2, the beta, and then the game overall? Is something you want to get when it comes out, just here and around the corner in a couple months? Or is it something that you just want to wait until it hits the bargain bin, or not even at all? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, and Humanican Media on Facebook and Twitter as well. And when we come back, we'll be right back with our good friends at the TV Ratings Guide, sharing some thoughts on the summer programming that's out there, a little bit of talk with them, and we're also going to be hopefully getting them on in the near future to do a big look at the fall premiere shows here in August, September. But this gives you a little taste of our conversations going forward, and we're going to have a little bit of that coming up right after the break. And then after that, to close out the show, Josh and I will be talking about the big success for Dunkirk and what this actually means for the American box office. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. I'm here along with my good friend, Mr. Josh Peterson. Once again, if you have a chance, check us out on our Friday show on the Podcast Radio Network, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Podcast Radio Network. And then you can download it on all the different arrays of great podcasting channels. And we throw in a bonus podcast or bonus content each and every time on our shows as much as we can indeed. So, Josh, to close out the show, I wanted to talk about the great victory for Dunkirk, which is the latest Christopher Nolan movie. He of the Batman trilogy and also Interstellar and so many other great films. Your thoughts on why Dunkirk performed well above the expectations of many media analysis, and also well above the studio expectations, not just overseas and not just obviously in Britain because of the close relationship that Britain audience has, with, you know, and the relationship that they have with the Battle of Dunkirk, or the situation going on in World War II at Dunkirk. But I want to hear your thoughts on why it performed so well here in the States this past weekend, to the tune of 50.5 million, most likely, and which was right around the numbers that the War of the Planet of the Apes earned the week before.
I think a lot of it has to do with Chris Nolan's directing prowess, but I also think that he is smart and cashing in on a genre of movie that hasn't been explored in a long time, and that's the historical epic. It's because, I mean, how long has it been since Saving Private Ryan came out? Or even, you know, you go farther back in time than that, and you have like your big sword and sandal flicks. Like, we haven't had a lot of those types of movies in a long time, and people like those. I mean, I know there's only so many tales you can tell from those events in our timeline, but it's like people do like to be educated. And like the great thing about Dunkirk is you're not just getting you know, Chris Nolan fans and like people who love film out there. You're getting you know, you're getting the older generation to come out and watch these movies, and I think that that's one of the things that's bringing this movie a lot of success. I just bought tickets to go see it tomorrow night, so I'm you know, we could talk more about this later, but yeah, because I was reading something where they were actually like the World War II veterans who were actually on the beaches in Dunkirk were saying like it's almost exactly how they remember it. So I think, you know, kudos to Chris Nolan and his writers, and I'm looking forward to watching this tomorrow.
And there's even at this point in time some Oscar buzz in regards to the film and how well it is executed. On the case of Christopher Nolan, his direction, as far as where it goes, it doesn't really focus on one central character. Obviously, Tom Hardy, who's been in you know, his movies before, is playing a character in the movie, and then also Kenneth Branagh. But it doesn't really focus too much. In fact, actually focuses a lot on Harry Styles, the pop singer. He actually has a decent role in the film. So, but it does not actually focus on one character per se, and it focus on the timelines and events more, you know, about that. So definitely some great words indeed on why Dunkirk has performed so well at the box office. It's got I believe an A or an A- cinema score coming out, which is very strong word of mouth. I know it's gotten very high on both Metacritic and also Rotten Tomatoes. So you put those things together, plus, like you said, Christopher Nolan's name is really good with moviegoers right now. I think he is one of the I guess most popular and best directors going around, along with you know, J.J. Abrams, and I would probably say James Gunn right now. They're selling their names. Their names on a particular project can sell and actually get people in their seats, as far as for large audiences, because Interstellar, people have a lot of opinions on how Interstellar was, good, bad, and different, but it definitely did well at the box office, and all of his previous efforts of recent times have done really well indeed, as for the most part. So, you know, he's obviously riding on a high right now and definitely getting some good Oscar buzz. So if you get a chance, check out Dunkirk at the theaters. I heard it's also a 70 millimeter movie that's playing 70 millimeters on more screens than any other film before it. Is that correct?
That's what I've heard, but it's still a relatively low number compared to you know, regular screenings. But yeah, it's 70 millimeter, and that's impressive. Like that's cool. So I don't know. I know it's only playing in like 2 places in Southern California. And one is in Universal Studios and the other's in Irvine. But you know, obviously it's a lot more difficult to get tickets to see that.
Yeah, and I definitely, if anybody wants to try and go see the 70 millimeter version, which is obviously the way Christopher Nolan probably intends you to see it the best way possible, would probably be the hardest to get to. Go see it during the week as opposed to try and catch it on the weekends, because of probably some large audiences trying to go see it, catch it in those limited number of theaters. But it's definitely a great sign to see 70 millimeters films being out there, at least as an option for folks if they want to see it, or the IMAX films or whatnot. So definitely a great job indeed by Christopher Nolan. And it's probably a film that both you and I are going to see beforehand when it comes to thinking about, is this film going to be one of our top picks for the year going forward? So definitely something that you're going to catch, and I'm going to probably have to catch too now because of all the good word of mouth. What are your thoughts on Dunkirk, the movie? Do you agree with our assessment that it's really going to be something that is not only going to be a very good hit at the box office, but also as well something that could be remembered come later this year as one of the finest films of 2017? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, and Humanica Media on Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, it's been a great episode. We want to thank the TV Ratings Guide for being on the show, and also my good friend Josh Peterson with his analysis on all the stuff going on this weekend at Comic-Con. Josh, before we head on out, did you have anything you wanted to tell the audience about what's coming up for you or Humanica Media?
There's a new Super BS for sure, but I mean, honestly, like I've got, like I mentioned, the stuff with my family, so it could be probably maybe next week before I'm able to start pumping out some new material again. And in the meantime, tune into Podcast Radio Network on Tuesday night to catch the exclusive Attack of the Humanicans.
Definitely looking forward to it indeed. And that's 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Podcast Radio Network. A lot to talk about today. Oh, my goodness. Out of breath. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.